Again, thank you all for joining us. And as I mentioned, my name is Matt Williams, and I'm the Business Services Specialist at the Addison Public Library. Today, I am joined by Nicole from the People's Resource Center. She is the manager of the Job Assistance Program at the People's Resource Center. And today we're going to be talking about demystifying the job search process. So in today's environment, with everything that's going on in the world, the job market is just like everything. It's in an influx. So we're here to talk about how you can take quick and easy steps to kind of take all the worry away of the job search process. So let's jump in and get started. So I introduced myself, but Nicole, if you want to do a quick little
Yeah,
introduction of
so
you.
my name is Nicole Tucholowski. I am the manager of job assistance with the People's Resource Center. I've been with PRC about 4 years. And I focus on supporting clients and our volunteers to help kind of clients reach their goals. And we'll talk a little bit more about our programs in a little minute. So just guidelines. I mean, we're all muted, but you can feel free to turn your video on if you feel comfortable. We'd love to see you. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat. We will also have time available. We've designed this program to have time at the end to answer any questions specific to where you feel you are in your job search and any help that we can give you. And so there's a couple options. You can use side-by-side mode at the top middle of the presentation for better viewing. So that's kind of how I have it set up right now for myself.
Okay, so some services that the Addison Public Library offers in terms of assistance for individuals in their job search. One, I highly recommend getting your library card. Your public library card gives you access to what I like to call library land, and that gives you access to our databases, reserving any workspaces in advance, checking out any technology that we have. But we also have one-on-one appointments. I can meet with you one-on-one and we can talk about your resume or if you need help filing for unemployment or researching a topic, anything like that. You also are doing one of the things that we offer here. You're attending one of our workshops. And lastly, we also have our new job toolkit, which is a yellow folder that is on the second floor of the library that has a bunch of information on the job search process. But if you are not in the Addison area or you can't make it in person to the library, don't worry, our new job toolkit is also virtual on our job seekers webpage.
So for job seekers at the People's Resource Center, our main focus is on one-to-one job coaching. So we help clients after orientation, we match people with a job coach. And our focus is on helping clients meet whatever their goals are. So everybody, I know both of you are in different places with your job search, and our goal is to meet you where you are and help you get to whatever your next step is. And so we do resume review. We have library workshops like this one. We help direct people back over to like IDS. IDS is not just for unemployment. They have a ton of resources. So you could look right now. I was just helping someone yesterday. IDS has an events calendar, and you can look and see, are there hiring events going on? Are there job fairs that I would be interested in? Are there certain companies that I would love to connect with that are holding an event? It's IDS, the Illinois Department of Employment Security, is a really great resource. The other thing that is unique with PRC is that we have a lot of wraparound support. So we have we have art classes you can take. We do literacy. So if someone is studying for their GED citizenship exam, they're trying to learn ESL, we can help with that. We do computer training and access. So we can help with everything from being certified in Microsoft Office and Excel to getting you a computer if you need one for school or work. We have social services, which can help with things like car repair, gas cards, rental and utility assistance, other referrals, and we also give food. And all of these things are free and available to any resident of DuPage County. So it is important to know in your job search to start where you're stuck. So if you're not getting interviews, you want to look at your resume. If you're not getting past the interview, I would start there. Focus on what you want and what your priorities are, right? So if you're like, well, I don't even know how to write a resume or what I should put on my resume, then you want to start there, right? So you kind of want to start where you feel like you're stuck, and that's going to be different for every person. So in preparing for your job search, this is, oh, look at me. Yep, slide 8, sorry. You want to really clarify your goals. I think sometimes, especially when people are stressed out about their job search, when they're really overwhelmed and they're thinking, I just want a job, there's this scattershot approach, right? Where people say, I quick applied to 500 jobs on Indeed, right? And my response to that would be, how effective has that been? Have you gotten interviews from that? Have you move forward in any way with that? 9 times out of 10, the answer is I haven't heard anything back, right? So you really want to clarify, what are you looking for, right? What is, what industry, what's your company culture? What are your non-negotiables, right? It's going to take some time to kind of self-reflect and know what that is. And in narrowing your focus, it's going to help you in all the other parts of your job search be a lot more effective. Employers, regardless of what the employer is, they want to hire enthusiastic, engaged uh, people. Doesn't matter what the company is, right? They want you to be interested if it's the water and sewage department or if it's McDonald's or if it's, a bank. They want you to be really engaged in whatever their mission is. And you have to be able to do that. And if your goal is just to get hired, most people can tell during that process, and it either reads in your resume or in the interview process. So having clarified goals, is not only going to help you kind of along your job search, but it's also going to help you realize, am I meeting that goal? How close, what other steps can I make towards achieving that goal? The same thing with, you want to audit your skills and experience, right? What are your list of strengths and skills, right? What are any skill gaps that you might have? How can you reframe them, right? If you've had a gap, because you were taking care of family, there are lots of skills involved with that that you may not realize. Employers aren't necessarily concerned with skills that you have gotten paid for. They're concerned with skills that you have used recently. So if you have skills that an employer would be interested in that you may not have gotten paid for, you can still put that on your resume and still engage with that in an interview process. If you're looking at that and you're going, I don't know what my goals are, I have no idea what my skills are, I'm so overwhelmed by that, then resources like Matt and myself can help you even at that stage of going, okay, well, how do we help you figure out what your goals are? How do we help you talk about what your skills are?
Mhm. Definitely. And if you don't mind me jumping in,
Yeah, of course.
um, just to reiterate on the non-negotiables, that is different for every individual.
Mm-hmm.
So someone, and it's different at every stage of your life as well, too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll use myself as an example. Um, Early on in my career, one of my non-negotiables was tuition reimbursement as a benefit, because I knew I wanted to advance my education and do all that, but I didn't have the means to pay for all of it myself. So I was really applying to jobs that offered tuition reimbursement. Now that I've completed my education, tuition reimbursement is not as important anymore,
Mm-hmm.
but my retirement package is. So you just analyze all of those jobs as you're applying to them to see what your non-negotiable is at that stage in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And then transferable skills, we can talk probably 2 hours about transferable skills,
Yeah.
but really highlight those skills. They tend to be what we call a soft skill rather than a hard skill. A hard skill is more of those technical skills like Microsoft Word and any sort of softwares that you would learn in your job and in your role. Those are easier to train someone on. But a soft skill are your more interpersonal skills. So your communication, your leadership,
Mm-hmm.
your attention to detail, your teamwork, all of those are harder to train someone on. And employers are always looking for those types of skills. So those are things that you're really going to want to highlight through your entire job search process, whether that's on your resume, in your cover
Mm-hmm.
letter, in the interview, and then once you get the job, you put your money where your mouth is, so to speak, I couldn't think of a better example, and demonstrate all those things that you talked about.
Yeah, and along with non-negotiables, like what Matt mentioned, it can also be realizing like your priority is that you want to be home for dinner every night with your kids or whatever that looks
Mhm.
like. That's going to shape and that should shape your job search so that maybe you're not going to apply to third shift positions, or maybe you're not going to apply to a position in the city where your commute is 2 hours and you're always going to miss dinner, right? So non-negotiables can be things that like every job has to have this, or there can be non-negotiables in your life in which the job has to frame around what's important to you.
Yeah, great point. Great point.
Personal inventory. So it kind of merges into what we were talking about. What are your priorities? Like, what are you good at? But also, like, what are your doubts, right? I think we all can have concerns. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I don't have the technical skills I think I need to have. Um, what are the things that you're concerned about, that you're bringing in with you? And, do you have somebody that can objectively say, how do you navigate around those doubts and concerns? Are those doubts legitimate, right? We all can have certain doubts that maybe it's just us that see them, that somebody else doesn't necessarily see. And so, ask people that you're close to, right? Take a look at like feedback you've received in your life or in your career, right? I have a folder that I keep at work of any kind of success or praise that I've seen either for myself or for my program. Um, Not to kind of keep my ego boosted, but so that when I'm having a hard day or I'm trying to remember, oh, I actually did really well on that project, or somebody noticed how I supported a client. And so it's kind of keeping track of all of that. I think in the midst of a job search, it can be very easy to focus on our negatives, right? Where we don't think that we are and that we should be. And it's hard to remember, you know, what have I been recommended for? What have I done well at? What accomplishments have I done that I've been proud of? And all of those things can not only help shape your job, your job search, but they can also help you remember, oh, I can put that on my resume. Oh, I can talk about that in an interview. And really, you need to ask yourself, why do I want what I want, right? Do I want to work in corporate culture because of the money, right? That's legitimate, but you need to be aware of what's motivating me to want what I want. Or do I want to work at Dooley because what I really want to do is help people? Are there other ways that you could help people? You know what I mean? Like all of those things are going to shape how you present yourself, how you write your resume, how you talk about your interview, how you network. All of those things are connected. And the why is really what motivates you forward. So if you're not really sure what that why is, I think clarifying that's also going to help clarify your motivation through your job search.
Definitely, definitely, I agree. And I will just add to the point about doubts. When I meet with individuals, we tend to see the most doubt when someone finds a job posting that they think they're qualified for, but they aren't, but they're doubting if they are or not.
Hmm.
Um, and that is very true. That is very true. And sometimes we do have those doubts, but I tend to recommend if you meet at least half of the qualifications that this organization is looking for, apply for the job still.
Hmm.
There's no harm in applying. The worst that can happen is you don't hear back or they say no. But it's a guaranteed no if you don't apply.
Hmm.
So there, by applying, you still have that option of getting that yes, of getting that interview. And like Nicole mentioned earlier, your resume is just geared to get you to that interview. The interview is for where you should shine, and then that's what gets you the job offer. So
Hmm.
your resume is just a piece of paper that gets you to that gets your foot in the door and yourself in the room. But then your interview is what takes you to the next step. So
Hmm.
I usually recommend if you're having doubts about if you're qualified for a position or not, look at those skills and qualifications that they're looking for, and see if you meet at least half of those. Education is a big one that people feel like, well, they're asking for a bachelor's degree and I only have a high school diploma.
Hmm.
Um, if you, that's okay. You may have skills from previous jobs that outweigh the formal education. Unless it says that that form of education is required for the job, like sometimes a master's degree is required for the position. Um, and if you don't have that, then maybe not necessarily apply for that. But if it's something preferred, or if they don't list if it's required or not, and you don't meet that qualification, go for it, apply for it.
Hmm. The same thing if I see a lot of people that maybe they don't know a specific software that's
Hmm.
required, but you have experience with something similar, or you know how to teach yourself how to navigate a software. That's something that you can either mention in a cover letter or demonstrate on your resume. Like, so to Matt's point, I think people often count themselves out. Well, I don't know that specific software. Well, a lot of these softwares are really specific to either the place that that you would be applying to or to a specific industry. So we're not all going to have experience with all of these different platforms. But if you have the ability to demonstrate, as Matt said, like that you have the skill to navigate through that, I think that's what's important.
Okay, this is me. So preparing for your job search. Um, as we kind of talked about the three stages, so it's your resume, your application process, the interview, and then getting that job offer. Um, the most important thing to do is to tailor all of your materials that you are submitting to the specific job that you're applying for. So with your resume, focus on your achievements and not just your day-to-day duties. One way to do that is my little catchphrase is I say, if you can put a number to it, do it. So, for example, you can say you supervised staff as a bullet point on your resume, or you can say you supervised a staff of 40. By using the of 40 part, that provides a clearer picture to the hiring manager, as well as demonstrating the massive achievement that you have with supervising a staff of 40. That's not necessarily an easy thing to do. And it just kind of then paints a picture better as well, because if you were to just say supervise staff, they might just think you have like 4 or 5 staff members, but that's a totally different thing that you've done when you have 40 staff members. And then for your cover letter, you want to customize it for each job and then really demonstrate that you have a genuine interest in this role. Um, with tailoring your materials, one little caveat to that. It's not reinventing your resume and your cover letter every single time. It can be little minor tweaks to your resume and to your cover letter. So one thing that we do, and we mentioned tailoring your resume because applications go through what is called an applicant tracking system now. And the applicant tracking system looks for certain keywords in your documents that match the job description. And one of those tweaks might be if you have Microsoft Office spelled out on your resume, but they use MS Office, you can switch your resume to MS Office, and then it will be seen as a keyword there. And then for your online presence, um, you want to make sure if you have a LinkedIn profile, you want to optimize your profile with a strong headline, have a professional photo, and like I said, use those relevant keywords as well. And then for cleaning up your social media, um, you want to make sure everything is set to private, if it's your personal social media, um, because the last thing you would want to have an employer do is to look you up on Facebook or Instagram, and then they see your party photos from your college days or something like that. So you want to just make sure your social media is presentable, and kept, and those things that are private are kept private. And then lastly, for an online or virtual presence, make sure you have a professional email. Um, your email is one of the quickest ways for an employer to count you out of a job. You don't want to have like um, superstar astronaut at gmail.com as your email. It should be maybe Matt Williams at gmail.com. Just having something more of a professional tone is what we usually recommend. I also say take it one step further and have an email that is just for applying for jobs, and it's not mixed with any of your other email accounts. And then lastly, have a voicemail message. So your voicemail can be your voice, or it can be you've reached the voicemail of your phone number spelled out as the robot says it. But make sure that you have your voicemail and that it's not full. When I was a hiring manager and I was calling individuals to either set up a pre-screening phone call or something like that, and their voicemail box was full. I gave people two chances. I would try to call them at a different time to see if I caught them at a better time. But some employers will not do that. If your voicemail box is full and they can't leave a voicemail, they have 50 other applicants that they need to get through and schedule pre-screens for. So they're just going to move right on to the next person.
And if you don't mind, Matt, just
Yeah.
in speaking about achievements, you can also think of them as accomplishments. And I think some people get overwhelmed. I don't have numbers, right, to back up all of these things. But I think you can give context, right? So some people like to put like, I'm a team player. What does that mean, right? You could say something like, I have experience, working across multi-generations and multicultural, like multiple cultures, multiple generations, at my main location, right? That gives a different context to somebody going, oh, they've worked with different generations and they've worked across different cultures, maybe people that speak with different languages. If you've had to work across departments, whatever that is, think about your bullets as giving context to what you've done so that somebody could ask you a question about it and you could follow up and be like, yeah, I've had, this is what I've done, or this is the story I can tell about that bullet point. So you don't necessarily have to always, if you've had a job where you're like, we don't have those kinds of metrics, that's fine, but you may have the ability to give a little bit more context about, well, were you actually supporting an executive director, right? Because you might just say, I supported my
Mhm.
lead. Well, who was your lead? Were they, or, maybe you supported multiple departments or whatever you did. Um, there's, I think it's easy to forget what we've done and also discount all the different things that we've done. So I
Mhm.
would take some time to think about that. And to Matt's point, keywords are really important. And there's resources like Tag Crowd and Resume Worded and even things like ChatGPT that can help you compare, does my resume match up to the keyword in these job descriptions? So that you don't necessarily have to scan it yourself and go do all the keywords there, because that can feel really daunting.
Definitely. Okay, so finding job opportunities. There are so many places where you can find a job. You can find them on Indeed, LinkedIn, Career Builder, all of those things. We tend to recommend that those places are great places to find jobs, but please go to the company website to apply for the job. Those third-party sites like Indeed and LinkedIn, um, sometimes they may not have that job that is active on Indeed is no longer an active job. So when you're applying on Indeed, you might be applying for a job that has been filled 2 weeks ago. It just hasn't been taken down from Indeed. So really explore those job searches, company websites. You can set up job alerts on pretty much any job board. We highly recommend that you also sign up for IDES resources. They send out daily emails. As of yesterday, there was over 78,000 jobs on Illinois Job Link, um, which if you ever have been on unemployment, you might be familiar with Illinois Job Link. You are required to at least put a resume on Illinois Job Link, but you don't have to be on unemployment to use Illinois Job Link. So it's kind of like a little best kept secret, kind of is how I like to look at it, that IDES offers. And those jobs are throughout the entire state of Illinois. So you can filter those searches to your general area or where you want to work or what field you want to be in. And it's for all levels from entry level to director level. Those jobs are posted on there. Um, and next I want to talk about networking. Networking is so important. Around 85% of jobs today are found through networking. So, um, and networking can just be letting people know that you're in your job search. So, I always recommend people when they come and meet with me, be like a realtor. Realtors are great at letting everybody know that they're a realtor. So if you're in your job search, be a realtor. Let everyone know that you're in your job search because you never know who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who knows someone who's hiring for a position that you might be perfect for. Also, I just want to stress the importance of building genuine connections with individuals, whether that's on LinkedIn, or reaching out to a former colleague, attending networking events, joining professional groups, all of that good stuff, are great networking strategies. Job fairs are also a great opportunity for networking as well. Um, I
And
do what, oh,
I
go
was
ahead,
gonna
Nicole.
say IDS has job fairs listed, and they're not necessarily all state job fairs. So like PRC had a job fair in March that they
Mhm,
promoted, and we'll have one in Westmont. So it can also be like local events that are happening that you can be aware of. So I think sometimes people go, oh, IDS, oh, that's just state or government. No, no,
mhm.
no. There's almost everything because they have such a wide reach, and who they can connect with is listed there.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And then I would say my last point with networking, when it comes to LinkedIn as a networking site, I think it's great. But make sure that you continue to build that network. If you just have a bunch of kind of like first level connections, is what they call it on LinkedIn, um, then your network goes stagnant. So you need those second and third ring connections for you to connect with people. So if someone pops up as a second connection on LinkedIn and they're in the industry that you want to work for, send them a message and say, "Hey, we have a mutual connection in so and so. I read some of the things that you posted on your profile. I think it's great. I'm in the job market for a position, and your company seems really interesting. Are you hiring?" That
Mhm.
took 2 minutes to say, maybe 5 minutes to write with proofreading, and then that provides great impact in terms of networking as
Mhm.
well.
And with networking, like if you go to the same coffee shop every morning and you know Sally, and Sally goes, "How's it going?" and you say good every time you see her, but you're in the middle of your job search, tell her. She might go, "Oh, my brother's
Hmm.
hiring over here." Like, and she might be, you don't know what connection that you might make to Matt's point. And I was just
Hmm.
helping somebody because I had a connection where somewhere they wanted to work. And with that, they were able to actually look at their application. Now, I don't know if that went further, but somebody actually looked at their application because I mentioned it to someone. So don't feel like you're burdening people. Most people want to help you.
Hmm.
So if you tell them, hey, I'm looking for a job as a teacher, or I'm looking for a job in marketing, you don't know if somebody knows somebody, or they might go, oh, there's this event next door, right? So, but they can't help you if they don't know. So, if you kind of struggle, if you're more introverted or shy, and you're like, what are my strategies to try to engage with people? Someone like Matt and myself, we can kind of help you figure out what does that strategy look like, so that you can make those connections. Uh, So the hit like 70% of jobs are never posted. So to Matt's point earlier, 85% of jobs are gotten through networking. So you really do need to kind of try to tap into these opportunities. And that can seem really daunting, right? Well, if half the job market's not even available to me, what am I doing? But that's where if you go back to kind of what is your why, what is your focus and your goal, all of those things can help you build those connections. And it's to the benefit of the employer and to you, right? So we all get like if most companies will give employee referrals, like people get money or they get comps for referring somebody. It's a faster way, right? And it's usually more cost effective. And why is that? Because it's built on trust relationships, right? If you connect me with your resume and your resume is amazing, but I have no idea who you are, and I don't have anybody that can say, oh, I've worked with Matt before, I'm
Hmm.
taking a huge chance, right? I actually have a really short window to figure out, do I want to hire you through a series of a couple of interviews, right? But, if my coworker says, oh, I know Matt, I've worked with him before, he's amazing and he helped me do this and he's got great skills, that makes me as the employer feel less stressed out and more confident in like building that connection based on what he's communicating with me. So and that's regardless of how the job market is doing, right? So up, down, sideways. Most jobs are generally always gotten through networking. And that, like Matt said, that can be through LinkedIn, that can be through face to face. I mean, even within my job and what I do, and just trying to make community connections, that happens through networking. So because people want to connect with other people that they trust through a person that they already trust. So think of it in that way of like you're like Matt said, you're trying to build genuine connections with people based on trust to help you get where you're going. You can also do that, if you're interested in like a nonprofit, volunteering can be a really great way to make that connection, right? Like there's volunteers at libraries, most nonprofits. And so if you're like, you know what, I would really love to work here, if you can volunteer around that industry or in that area, that's another way to build those connections.
Mhm. And I kind of want to throw in the point of an informational interview.
Mhm.
And I know, Nicole, you are the expert on informational interviews, so I'm going to let you take it over once I'm done. But an informational interview is it's not a formal job interview, but it can be your way into an industry, especially if you're in that career transition point where you're like, I'm done with my current industry. I want to get into this new one, but I don't know anyone there, and I just want to learn more about it. And that's what an informational interview is. You can reach out to someone at an organization that you want to work with and say, hey, can I have 15, 20 minutes of your time? We can go and get coffee, and I just ask you about your job. And then you get that information, and then that can maybe lead to some additional skills that you want to highlight on your application, or it can lead you to then say, oh, I thought this was an industry I want to go into, but maybe not anymore now that I know what the day-to-day looks like. It's just your kind of little foot in the door without any formal pressure or anything like that. So I don't know if you have anything to add, Nicole,
Yeah, it can
on an
also
information
lead to like
interview.
other connections,
Hmm.
right? So depending on the industry, it might lead to other connections. And I would generally suggest asking questions that you cannot easily Google, right? So ask a question that wouldn't necessarily pop up. So for example, I was doing informational interviewing around the funeral industry because I didn't know anything about it. And I was curious, what does that look like? And I found out and it should have made sense to me, but I didn't realize, and it's not easily posted. Being a funeral director is really physically intensive, and you have to be in really good shape, and it's harder for like smaller people or people that have like physical limitations. I would not have found out that information very easily through Google. Like it would not have easily popped up. So part of doing informational interviews to what Matt said is like you find out like maybe this isn't what I thought it was going to be, or maybe this is what I thought it would be. And normally like people in those communities know other people, right? So if you reached out to me and said, what's it like to work at a nonprofit? I know a bunch of people that work at other nonprofits, and I could connect you based on what you were interested in. And I'm sure Matt could do the same thing in the library industry. So that's part of what informational interviewing can do for you is help expand your network. And then people realize, like, if a job does open up, oh, I talked to this really enthusiastic person like a couple weeks ago. We just had this position open up. I wonder if they'd be interested in applying, right? So all of those things kind of work together. But people get nervous to just kind of reach out and ask for that
Hmm.
conversation. Apply strategically. So earlier I said, quick applying on Indeed is probably not to your benefit. So you want to focus on applying to fewer roles with customized applications. So I've generally kind of rule of thumb for when I communicate with clients, I tell them it should take about an hour to really apply to any job you really want through you're doing research on what is their website, like what's their mission. I've updated my resume, I've updated my cover letter, I've kind of saved that information. I've made, I've done the application online. And so it should take more than a minute to apply for something that you're really interested in. And again, using things like spreadsheets or tools to monitor your submissions and follow up. I always tell people save that job description somewhere because the last thing you want is someone calls you and then you're like, where I can't find that job description online because maybe they've pulled it down since they're actively interviewing.
Hmm.
And then, and what we talked about earlier, use keywords to help match with job descriptions and think about it. So, Matt used the example of like Microsoft Office versus MS, Also think of it in terms of like I had somebody that was applying for a position and she had customer service everywhere, but the application said guest services. So you and I know that's the same thing, but a robot is looking for the word guest. So she changed the wording, she reapplied, she got the interview and she got the job, right? So don't underestimate the value of matching the language of to the employer. I know sometimes it can seem unfair, like, well, we all know that's the same thing, but it's also that it shows to the employer that you understand what's their culture and how they're choosing to communicate. So those things can be really valuable in making those connections. Is there anything you want to add about keywords, Matt?
No,
I
I was
feel
gonna
like
say
you're really
that.
good at this stuff.
Yeah, I was just gonna say the last point you made is about like reflecting the company culture. That is a great point. And like there are just little tools that we use out there for determining what a keyword is. Nicole mentioned some earlier. An additional one is there's a website called JobScan, where you can actually put in the job description of the job you're applying for, and then you can upload your resume, and we'll actually do that ATS comparison for you. Um, One other additional one is I like to use a word cloud generator. Um, and the one I used is I'm not a very good librarian on this. I'm using the first Google search. But if you just Google free word cloud generator, it's the first one that's there and it's great. You can put the job description in there, hit enter, and it will generate a word cloud. The larger the word is in that word cloud, the more times it appeared. So the likelihood that that will be a keyword is greater. And then you can take it one step further once you have edited your resume, put your resume minus any personal contact information into that same word cloud generator and compare the two. When you're looking at an applicant tracking system, you're looking for a 50 to 80% keyword match for your application to be seen by a human being. Um, it is that large range because employers can adjust their applicant tracking system for certain numbers. So we usually tend to say an entry level position, if you have that 50% match, you're going to be on the better side. If you're applying to be a director or a CEO, you're going to want closer to that 80% match because it's a more competitive position that you're applying for.
And again, this can all seem a little daunting, but if you're applying for very similar types of positions or within a similar industry, similar roles, it's not a huge amount of tweaking, right? But if you're trying to do kind of scattershot and applying within maybe 3 to 4 different industries, it can be really overwhelming because you're having to strategize in very different ways.
Mhm, mhm, definitely. Okay, so now the interview process. We are here to teach you how to ace your interview. So again, just like when you're applying for the job, your preparation is going to be key. You want to research the company and the role. Are there any industry trends? Has that company been in the news lately? Is there something that you can pull from that that you can talk about, especially if it's something positive in the news? Um, and then you also want to practice some common and behavioral interview type questions. So um, I guarantee the first question you're going to be asking or get asked is, tell me about yourself. Everyone gets worried about that question. Um, I always say use like have a little elevator pitch prepared. And on your resume, you might have what is called a professional summary. That is a great elevator pitch about yourself that then you can use when they ask you the tell me about yourself question. And behavioral type questions are going to be those that start with like, tell me about a time when dot 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 you worked well on a team, you dealt with a difficult customer, anything like that. And you're going to want to use the STAR method of answering a question. And the STAR method is an acronym. It stands for situation, task, action, and result. So the situation is, okay, you lay it on the ground floor of what it is. You give the hiring manager the background. The task is what you did, or the task is what needed to be done. The action is what you did, and what the result is. And it is a-okay to use an example of when the result may have not gone the way that you had planned. And that if that is the case, you want to then add on another layer and say what you've learned from that situation and how you can avoid that in the future. And then first impressions very matter so much. So be be just aware of your body language, wear professional attire, and be punctual to your interview. And I always recommend people take your interview as it starts from the moment that you leave your car. So you're leaving your car to head into the building that you're going to do the interview in. That's when your interview starts. Because you never know who you might be interacting with when you're getting ready for the interview. And we tend to recommend you arrive 10 to 15 minutes early. So you're going to be placed in a waiting room most likely. So how are you behaving in that waiting room? How did you interact with the receptionist that you were first introduced by? I would say one thing that I always did as a hiring manager was um, once I got the phone call saying, "Hey, the person you're interviewing is here. Um, Whenever you're ready, they're going to be in the waiting room." After the interview, I would go talk to that person who gave me the phone call and say, "How did they interact with you? Were they nice? Were they friendly? Were they jerks? Were they mean?"
Mhm.
And if they were a little nasty or mean, great. I don't care how great their interview was. They were not kind to the person who is their first interaction with the organization. So um, they were then an immediate no for me. So that's why I always recommend your interview starts from the moment you leave your door.
Mhm. Um, and just about like what to wear for an interview, I think that comes up. If people don't know what to wear. I think it's perfectly fine to ask, right? If you're really not sure, especially now, like post-COVID, like what does somebody wear? Like what do people wear in this industry? If you're not sure, ask the HR department. What do people like generally wear? And they're happy to give you like that perspective. If you can't glean what people dress like from their website, or based on the role that you'd be in, I mean, you can kind of gauge like business casual, but if you're not sure, you don't want to walk in, dressed higher than the person that's necessarily interviewing you. So I would go ahead and just ask, and I would ask like, who am I interviewing with, right? Those are
Mhm,
totally fair questions to ask. No one's going to be upset or bothered. If anything, that's going to show engagement. Oh, they're really interested in doing well in this interview. They want to make sure that, they're dressed appropriately. So,
mhm. Yeah, great point, great point. And lastly, with your interview, have great questions prepared. Um, One of the things at the end of an interview, they're going to ask you if you have any questions about them or the company. Have some prepared. And it can be something like if you are, I'll take the nonprofit sector as an example. A great question that I sometimes ask is and this can be actually applied across all industries, what's the greatest internal need and the greatest external need that you feel that this position can assist with? That gets it usually stumps the person who is conducting the interview. They're not necessarily prepared 100% to get asked that question. And that's okay. But it shows that you have thought about your role in this organization, both on an internal process and an external process. And I say it works great in the nonprofit sector because in the nonprofit sector, you tend to have more work with the outside world and external entities. But yeah, have some great questions for the end because it shows curiosity and insight about your role with the company.
and you can have
Mhm.
questions based around what's important to you. So I think a fun question that I've gotten when I've been in a room with people where everybody's been there for different lengths. When someone asks, like, well, some people have been in this room for like 2 years, some people have just been hired, and some people have been here for 15 years. I'd love to know, what does everybody love about working here? Right. So I think that can, ha don't ever say no when someone goes, do you have questions?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so now we have to talk about one of the negative things about the job search process is handling rejection. There will be a time when you get a no for a job that you really want. But it's important to be resilient and to keep going in that job search process. So I always look at it as taking rejection as a redirection. So reframe your setbacks as learning opportunities. Okay, so you felt like you did a great job in this interview process. Reach out to the interviewer and see if they can provide you any feedback. If they can, take that feedback and use that as a learning opportunity. Or if they don't provide any feedback, do some self-reflection and see, okay, what maybe did I not do right? And sometimes it can be you did nothing wrong. They just had five great candidates for the position and they had to pick one. So that can be the case sometimes, but it's always important to do that self-reflection. Um, and also celebrate every small win. That is a way that you can become resilient and handle rejection. So take every step that you get as a win, take every networking opportunity as a win, and all of those wins bring you closer to your goal.
Mhm. And you don't, so I just had a client who didn't get a position, but then a couple weeks later was actually reached out to and said, "Hey, we have a new position open. We think you might be a good fit. Would you like to come interview?" So I know it can be really hard to get rejection, but always stay like positive, express gratitude and engagement
Mhm.
because you don't know if there's going to be an opportunity later on within that company that you might be a good fit for.
Correct, correct. Thank you for mentioning that, Nicole, because a thank you email is a great way for your name to be kept in that hiring manager's mind. And then that situation, as Nicole mentioned, might actually come up and say, so Cole maybe not have been qualified for this role, but she sent me this thank you email. It was really great. I really liked interviewing her. She's actually perfect for this role that's coming up. So I'm gonna reach out to her again. So I always say send a thank you email after you interview, and then
Mhm.
even after you get a no, send a thank you email. Because it's just one more time that your name is in that hiring manager's head.
And kind of final thoughts, like take care of yourself. I know that kind of seems straightforward, but looking for a job can be really isolating. It can be really lonely. It can cause a lot of self-doubt. Well, I thought I was perfect for this position, but I didn't even get an interview. Or, I thought I interviewed really well and nothing went forward. And, my friend got a job and like on her first interview, right? Like we all know those stories. So, keep your goal, right? Stay organized because it'll help you realize like you all the work that you're putting in to kind of reach where you're going. Keep your routine. So I think sometimes when people are doing a job search, they go, I'm gonna do this for 12 hours a day. That's unsustainable. Like treat it like you would a normal job, right? You get up, you have breakfast, maybe you work on your job search for a few hours, you go take a walk, you go have coffee with someone, you come back, you work on it for the afternoon, and then you take the evening off to do whatever it is that you do, right? Um, Employers want to hire positive and engaged people. If you burn yourself out in the job search, it's going to be that much harder to kind of engage in the way that you want. And keep tracking of the things that you've accomplished, right? There's a lot of work, like all the things we've talked about, they all take work, right? So maybe, keep track of the jobs that you've applied for, but also like who are you networking with and how have you made edits to your resume and who have you reached out to or like all of those things if you can track them so that you can get a snapshot of like, I may not have reached my final goal, but I've achieved a lot of things that help me get closer to that goal.